everyone, and welcome to the last review that I'll be doing this year. Yes, I've got to take a Christmas break at some point. I'm going to be recording this review and the top 10 of 2019 today, and then that's a wrap. You know, I need time off, okay? It's been a long December, it's been a long November, especially with all these Essen titles. You know, everybody needs a rest. So Season 3 is going to conclude after, you know, basically from Christmas Day onwards. I don't know what order I'll release the videos in, but that will be the last one for this year. Maybe the odd vlog, who knows? You know, it depends if I feel like doing anything after Christmas Day. But for the most part, it's going to be no more reviews, and certainly no more top 10s, until we get to January, and then Season 4 will begin, and then obviously we know we're back on track. So for now, we're talking about On the Underground from Ludi Creations by Sebastian Bleasdale. This is, wow, talk about bringing back an oldie. This one came out all the way back in 2006. You know, long time ago. For most people, that's ancient in terms of board games, and to be honest, for the hobby, it kind of is. The hobby exploded after 2012 and suddenly went like insane with the amount of games you got. So anything beyond like 2010 even feels a bit ancient. But, you know, not exactly cult of the new myself, so I do believe that the old games can still be really good. Question is, was this one any good, and is it worth reprinting? So, On the Underground involves you, as players, building up a network of underground tube, sort of railway tube networks. So the London tube network, basically. Although here, you also get Berlin. So you get to do the Berlin metro system as well. And the idea is that each of you has these like connections that you place on the board in order to just build up your network. And you'll have 2, 3, or 4, depending on the player count. But what you're trying to do is build your network in such a way that this one passenger uses your routes as often as possible. And don't ask me what his motivation is, regardless of what passenger you pick out of the little meeples. I mean, you can have like old man, you can have man, woman, you can have pregnant woman, you can even have disabled person in a wheelchair. It's like, I suppose that's actually got a bit of reason, but the rest are like, But the idea is that this is the laziest passenger ever. So what will happen is at the end of every turn, the passenger will travel to various spots on the board, depending on what cards are out, you know, location cards. And what they will do is they will try to take the easiest route possible. Not the shortest, not necessarily the shortest, but the easiest. So they don't want to walk. They don't want to have to get off at a tube station and go, today, all right, and get on this station. No, they want to literally just sit on the train for the entire journey if possible. So they don't care how long the route is, but they will go from A to B if it means they don't have to walk. It could be like, wee, and get there, as long as it's all on a train, rather than simply going, 5 seconds across the boundary. That lazy. So how you're building up these networks is designed in such a way that you're trying to build up a system where you think the passenger is going to use your networks more often than the opponent's. You get a point each time, so the points are quite tight as they go forward. But you can also connect to other spots on the board, like the outer areas, like the outer connections, which get you points, as well as these little tokens that allow you to branch off, because you have to do a continuous line to begin with, but spend these tokens, you can branch off and do other things. You've only got a finite amount of connections that you can put down, and some routes can be longer than others, so you're really restricted in terms of how much you can actually put on this board, with particular connections. And there's other ones where you can get some bonus points as well as even connect up these little landmark tokens, for the London map anyway. The Berlin one has a slightly more, not complicated, but slightly more meaty set collection aspect to it. But, you connect these tokens up, you get some spare points as well. And the game basically just plays out like that. You put down 4 action points worth of stuff, be it collecting switch tokens or putting connections down. 1, 2, 3, 4, passenger travels, 1, 2, 3, 4, passenger travels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you just rinse and repeat in that fashion until the deck of cards runs out. At which point, check out the number of victory points and have a guess.
Of course!
So this is obviously a reprint, as we say, and we're talking a 13-year reprint. It came out in 2006. I don't know when it went out of print, but when it went out of print to stay out of print. It never came back. And so this is a long time in the making. I only heard of this game because of Tom Vassell raving about it on various top 10 lists. And it's like, this game sounds interesting. I want to try it. And then as soon as Heracles from Ludi Creations got in touch with me and said, we're doing this as a reprint, it's like, ooh, it caught my attention because I wanted to find out more. And certainly when you look at both versions, I don't know how the old one played, so I can't talk about rules comparisons or anything like that, but I can certainly tell that aspects have been streamlined here. But in terms of aesthetics, wow.
You good looking.
they really went to town on this. Now, this is a deluxe version, and there are a few cosmetic differences between this and the retail version, but not many. I mean, you get these cool, like, 3D miniature markers for, like, Big Ben or some other tower in Berlin. My knowledge of Berlin is not particularly great. I haven't visited it yet. But, you know, you get these markers to say where the locations are. You get that in the deluxe. In the normal version, I think you just get these, like, normal markers. You know, either way, it still works. Here, you know, I've got a sleeve for the game itself, whatever, you know, it's a nice cover. But for the most part, because the retail and the deluxe versions are mechanically the same, there's just some odd cosmetic differences. But they both look amazing because the board is lovely white and stark. It's a huge board. I think it's bigger than the original board was, so you can actually see what's going on it because, you know, it gets quite busy otherwise. And everything is clear, the iconography is top notch, there's nothing ambiguous, there's nothing like, hang on, I can't quite see what's there. Oh, wait, no, it's as clear as day. It's this giant blue circle, giant green circle. Oh, there's 5 connections there, there's 2 there, there's 1 there. You know, it's so easy to tell what's what, and it's even grid referenced to say, right, okay, we're location card. I need to go to Highbury Queensdale, that's E2. Oh, there it is. So if you're one of these people who in Ticket to Ride still can't locate places around your own home country, then, you know, at least the card told you where it was. It's pretty much a similar deal to this. It's pictured on the card and there's a grid reference. What more do you need? I mean, I don't know the London metro tube stations like off the back of my head or anything like that. So, you know, I'll get one that, you know, says, oh, I need to go to Sudbury, and that is where exactly. You know, I don't know where they are, but the cards are easy enough to follow. Certainly, this game doesn't feel clunky. Now, in terms of the gameplay itself, it's very tactical. You can't be a strategist in this game. You know, you can think, oh yeah, I'm going to build a network exactly there, and then that's will do this. No, you can't do that, and that's one of the things I like. This is a reactionary game. You have to look at the board state. You have to look at where the guy is, like the guy or girl, is trying to go. Where's this passenger going next turn? You know, do you care about the passenger this turn? You know, can you influence them in any way? Or are you just going to say, you know what, you're not going anywhere near me, can't do anything about it, but I know what, I'm going to build up my network over here, or I'm going to connect up some of these external points in order to get more points that way. Because you can do either or, and they both work as legitimate strategies. You know, the scores are usually quite tight by the end. I mean, there are being tiebreakers galore. There are people like within a 5-point spread. Yeah, you may get 1, maybe 2 outright losers, you know, depending on how many players you've got, but you usually always get at least a couple of people really tug-of-warring it till the end. And that's great, because it feels like it's anybody's game for a good 3/4 of the game. You might think, well, after 3/4 I can kind of call it, but even then somebody might surprise you. So, and brilliant, you know, I love it when it's like that, because you get a lot of Euro games where, you know, so I can go, right, my first 4 turns were bad, oh well, you win. You know, you could literally call good game at that point, and that's never a good thing. So, aesthetically, fantastic. Looks the business, great reprint. Love this colourful, cover that's, again, stark, but just, I don't know, there's something about it that just really looks nice. This is easily, in my opinion, I think the most beautiful looking game that Ludi Creations has ever put out. And yeah, they're not exactly bad on their aesthetic, so, you know, that's saying something. Theme-wise, the theme is a little bit weird. I mean, the idea that this passenger is super lazy. I mean, I've had things from well, it's a disabled Meeple, therefore they want to be taking the train all the time. Okay, that's fine. But then you've got one where they use the bloke and somebody refers to him as a drug dealer doing his rounds. You know, I've heard all sorts of explanations as to why this Meeple is the laziest person in the world. But, you know, you're not really playing this game for a thematic thing. It's purely just it's a mechanical game in its own right. But people still banter a lot about this passenger. And there's always kind of slagging off everybody else's network, you know, the colours, they're comparing it to actual London lines, you know, if you've got knowledge of the tube network, they go with the red Central or the green DLR, whatever, I can't remember what they are, but you know, they're making those comparisons, and even people are just making random comments and the passenger's going to use my one and then my one again over to here, and it's like, well, we said the passenger was lazy, we never said he was intelligent, and everyone's just slagging each other off for their different network connections. And granted, that's the people rather than the game, but the game is just so light and free, light-hearted in such a way that people can just do that and have a laugh. This one doesn't feel like you have to play it super serious. It's a light game. There's not a lot to teaching this. You know, it is one of the easiest games of this size to teach people. You know, not like Ticket to Ride levels, of course, but what have you got to do? You've got four actions around, and you do one of two things. That's it. And then the movement of the passenger is the other thing to teach, and how to score points. That's it. That's literally all you got to teach. You know, how the cards come out and the whole yellow and grey thing, again, that takes a second to explain. You know, really the only rule in this that is even close to being complicated, and that's because you do have to cater for a lot of different circumstances, is how the passenger moves. You know, it's like, right, the passenger's going to go take the easiest route possible. Okay, if it's equal either way, then how many networks are they using? Right, well, he uses 3 networks to get there, 2 to get there, so he's going to go there. Okay, no, it's entirely equal. So active player chooses. Okay, fine. He goes to a yellow one, then goes to a grey one, unless they're all yellow or all grey, in which case he just goes to the closest one. You know, there's a few of these little ones where you have to go, right, hang on, what is the scenario? And follow this little flow chart in such a way that's like, right, has he got this circumstance? Yes. Okay, right, is it closer to you by 1 network or 2 networks? No. He goes there. You know, it's kind of like that. You have to just do it step by step, and you will get it fine. You know, people don't get confused by the movement mechanic. You know, after a good quarter of the game maximum, people have kind of got the gist of how this passenger is meant to move, even if they're a complete noob to this game. It is just a really simplistic teach, and that goes a long way. Gateway level? I don't know. It's gateway level in terms of how complex the rules are, but trying to figure out how to do well and move the passenger around, it might be a bit much for the brand new player. I don't know. This one's a hard one to gauge. It could be, if someone said this was a gateway game, I'd be totally fine with that. I'm more thinking it's a next step. I think you could play something like Ticket to Ride and various other ones and get a simpler experience as a gateway game, but it's not far off. It's a nice, simple, light teach, but with enough depth to make you like really think, oh, I built up this really combo turn this round, you know, because by putting these networks here, suddenly he's gone from there all the way to there. He takes this huge route, which uses most of mine, and then he comes back and does all this, and you feel good when the passenger does what you want him to do. Of course, doesn't always do what you want them to do, but, you know, it's a lazy passenger. You can't predict it entirely, you know, but it's still weird how this passenger works. I want to get their motivation. But so although we're looking at pretty solid here, where's the negatives? There is really only one negative. It's a bit of a biggie, but not enough to kill the game. The problem that this has is that it goes from 2 to 5 players, and the game length is meant to be about an hour to 75 minutes. Does it actually say on the front? No, it doesn't look like it does, but you know, you're talking about 60 to 90 minutes is what they're expecting this game to take. That's accurate, but it goes from 2 to 5 players, and this is where things get problematic at the player scaling. The issue with this is that it goes from 2 to 5, but it's very much, the same situation as you get with a lot of games. Do not play this with 5, ever.
5 is right out!
I'm so glad someone on YouTube actually told me about that meme, because I can't believe I've never used it in the past. But yeah, 5 is right out! It really is not worth playing this with 5. Because what happens is, there's no solo mode unfortunately. You have to buy a little mini expansion to play it solo, which I have ordered. I'm getting it in January, so if you're very nice, maybe I'll do a solo playthrough of the solo mode. But it's 2 to 5. In 2 players, you get 4 networks each, and it's a really cool tug of war between you and the opposing player, and you've got lots of options because you have 4 networks. So you can do a couple of long, couple of short, you know, do what you like. 2 player is really good and really fast. 3 player is the ultimate sweet spot. The sweet spot. And I know I sound like a broken record when I say 3 is the sweet spot, but it just really is here. You know, you've got enough of an interaction on the board so that it's not completely open-ended. You've got 3 networks each, not 4, so you've got a little bit less choice, but not like so restrictive. And it goes on at a nice pace even if you do have someone who's a little bit slower. And also, you can predict a little bit more about what the passenger is going to do in 2 and 3 player because there's only so many ways the board state can change by the time it gets around to your turn. When it gets to 4 and 5, here's where things start to get a little bit more problematic, because 4 player is on the bar, it's on the cusp of, okay, this is fine. When I first played it 4 player, I thought, I really don't like this 4 player, it's going on too long, it's a bit too chaotic, but then I played it a bit more 4 player and it's like, No, actually, it's not as bad as I thought, and I will play this at 4, but I'll be a bit more picky about who I play it with, because anybody who is AP in this game is going to drag this like crazy, because you can't strategize on a turn. You might have some idea of where you're going to build, but at the end of the day, the passenger could be wanting to go from here all the way to here now, so you need to react to that. AP players, yeah, you might have a problem here. With 4 players, the board state gets a little bit more chaotic for my liking, and it can drag a little bit with time because you've obviously got downtime with 3 other players taking their turns.
Do something! Do something! Do something!
But you've only got 2 lines each, so there's only so many ways that you can develop your track, so you shouldn't have too many options to think about on your turn. But because the scores are generally quite tight, every point matters. It doesn't feel like a point is a wasted point. 5, though, there is no point playing this with 5, because you still have 2 lines each, and you've added another player. So all you have done with 5 players is added more chaos and more time. What's the point? No way. This was the same with the original edition. Tom Vassell always said this was a 2 and 3 player game. I personally agree with that. I will play this at 4 though. I don't think 4 is bad. So I would call this a 2 to 4 player game. Best at 3, better at 2, decent with 4. 5, no way. No way. You might as well just cross out the 5 on this cover and turn it into a 2 to 4 player game, because I can't imagine any reason why you would do it with 5, unless it's like, oh, what do you want to play this game? We have 5 players. Okay, fine, but I will not want to be in that game. Trust me on that. So that's a bit of a negative, that the player scaling doesn't quite cover the whole range, but it's not the biggest problem in the world, because 2 to 4 is still not bad. I mean, come on. I prefer 2 to 3, but I will still play it with 4. So I've got 3 out of the 4 possibilities, and I'm not classing the solo mode as anything here, because that's a separate thing you have to buy. So I'm not going to take that into account when I'm reviewing this. So overall, On the Underground is really solid. I mean, everybody is caught in the new these days and wants to buy the new hotness. It's like, oh, look at it, here's my Tainted Grail, and here's my Barrage, and here's my Gloomhaven, and there's all this new stuff here. The old games are still decent. I did Winner's Circle and Code 777 the other week, and they're great games. They're still on my shelf. Old games were still good. They didn't just suddenly become obsolete. And old is relative considering how many games come out each year. I mean, 2006 is still in the 21st century. It's not like we're talking, Taboo and Monopoly and, all the games from that time period. We're talking about, 13 years ago. Not that long when you consider in terms of time, but just because the board gaming hobby has just gone boom lately, it feels older than it really is. But this is a great game. I would have happily played this if this was back in 2006. I'm pretty certain it would have been a favourite of the year. There weren't that many games released in 2006, so I guess there was only so much to compare it to. But this is a reprint done right, because the old version aesthetically wasn't great. It was a bit busier and a little bit more complex in places. This one has streamlined it. It has a beautiful aesthetic artwork to it. It's made it more accessible to everybody. It's on wide distribution. This is just a solid reprint of what must have been a classic game. Overall, I think it just basically ticks a lot of the boxes, aside from a bit of the dragging down time in too many players, and the fact that because you can't strategize, you have to hope that AP players don't slow the game down for you too much. So, and like I say, you've all got 2 ways to play: London or Berlin. I predominantly play on London, but occasionally I flip it over and play the Berlin map. There's only a couple of changes to how you score points, but you've got an entirely new map. And being English, I have no idea how to pronounce or translate any of the German names on the map. It is quite insane. I would love to play this with a German group, because I would just be like the complete outsider trying to pronounce all these place names, and they'd just be laughing at me. It'd be hilarious. But they're going to bring out more map packs, so we're going to have, I forget what's coming out next, but I mean, you could do Tokyo, Paris, Moscow, New York. There's all sorts of places around the world you could do this, and you just release 2 maps at a time, tweak the scoring. Perfect. You've got a nice, easy expansion which keeps the game fresh. This has got a lot of legs, and I think if you have even thought about this game and wanting to try it, I definitely recommend you do. It works brilliantly as a game cafe item. Honestly, excellent game. You know, not quite the perfect 10 out of 10, but I would still give this a solid 9 out of 10 and call this one of my favorites for the year. It is one that you need to check out, one that you should definitely get around to, you know, at least having a look at and playing. And I would like to think that most of you would be like, yeah, this is actually really cool, and possibly grab it later. But of course, we all like different games, but for me, it's just really solid, really smooth, really like it. So that's On the Underground from Ludi Creations, and that's it for me for reviews for the rest of this year. Have a great Christmas. As again, I don't know what order I'm going to do these videos, so I think I'll just say a Christmas message in every video from this point onwards, but you know, certainly this is the last review I will do for this year. So take care, have a great break, and I'll see you in 2020, where hopefully we'll get even more great games. Take care, and I'll see you next time.